Alright, here we have Transformers Animated Deluxe Class Blurr. He is the covert agent, or the undercover agent for the Autobot Elite Guard. He also serves as an intelligence officer for Ultra Magnus. He's a deluxe class figure, and he happens to be my favorite among the Elite Guards, next to Ultra Magnus, of course. Um, but compared to Jazz or Sentinel Prime or Elite Guard Bumblebee, he is the best among the lot, in my opinion. He's got a great alt mode. He's got great robot mode. Just look at this guy. You can get him into a lot of poses. Good articulation. He just lacks a few joints, which would normally be present in a universe figure, but since this is a animated figure, well, it could be excusable. But he does. I would have liked it if he had a thigh joint right here, so he could swivel this part and he could have better stance. I like the fact that his feet are on ball joints, just like Mirage. Henkei Mirage or Classics Mirage. Um, the wrist could use some action. It doesn't, and I don't know if you can see it, but the ball joints on his shoulders are hindered by these long tips of the car, so you can't really get him into that much position without this one hitting his head and all sorts of stuff on his body. Also, what I don't like about him is the shoulder joints are pretty loose. They keep falling apart every time you play with it, or you get him into some poses, but it doesn't lock neatly into position. It just stays there, and it, every time you adjust the shoulders, it likes to pop off. So you can get him in still decent poses. I mean, it's still pretty good, but his hands are a little bit hindered. I wish they could have found a way to do something with these shoulders. Anyway, but the feet are great. I mean, there's no looseness, as how Pia or D-Banks reviewed him. It's pretty tight. So I'm really happy about that. At least the figure that I have is pretty tight. Okay, again, as I said, he's an intelligence officer. He's a covert agent, uh, uh, Autobot Elite Guard. It's a good homage to the 1980s Blurr, who was the speedster. He is faster than Bumblebee, according to the show, and he is voiced by the same guy who voiced him in the 1980s, by John Matsushita. Okay, give you a good look of this figure. It's a pretty lean figure. It's actually if you've seen my overview video of the Elite Guard, you see he's the tallest among all the Elite Guard deluxes. He's like Lockdown of the Decepticons. Lockdown is a pretty tall deluxe figure. This guy's a pretty tall figure as well. So, for size comparison, check out my other video of the Elite Guard. Okay, a lot of positives on this figure. I mean, if you're not a fan of the show, I think you can pick this guy up just based on the figure alone. Apart from the fact that he's got great lines, he's got good articulation, he's actually an improvement of the Blurr we saw, the G1 Blurr figure. That figure was just utterly hopeless. It had a great alt mode, but the robot mode just stood there and did nothing. This guy is, I think, an improvement because it reflects the colors, the personality of the original Blurr, and you can get him into a lot of cool poses because of this new figure mode. And I really like it. It's actually pretty good, pretty decent figure. He is probably the hardest to find among all of the Elite Guards, or among the Transformers Animated. It used to be Jazz, but shelves have now been filled with jazz, and this is the latest wave here in Manila. We have not had Waspinator or Samurai Prowl at Toys R Us here, but what we have as the latest wave is this guy with Blazing Lockdown and Swindle, and he is still the best deluxe figure right there, out there. Another thing I'd point out is his shield. This is a part of the car. This is actually the hood of the car. Sorry about that. Ball joints on the hips are pretty loose, as with most animated figures. The hood becomes a shield. I don't like this. I really don't. And his weapon is an interesting electric chainsaw. It pops out. I mean, the chainsaw is cool, but I don't like the fact that the Hasbro engineers made the hood into a shield. I mean, that's a cop out for me. Just like Lockdown's blaster or hook or EMP blaster. I wish they would have found a way to incorporate it in the transformation. At least Lockdown's blaster would stay in place when you transform him. This piece, you really utterly have to remove it for you to transform him. Excuse me, which just I think it's laziness on the part of Hasbro. They should have been able to incorporate this in a few joints here and there, fold it up or something like that, because I don't think Blurr needs a chainsaw. But nevertheless, it's still a good touch. I like the fact that it's spring activated, not like Lockdown, which you have to clamp on. Okay, he's a great figure. Give him a 10 out of 10. I mean, if you can find him, you see him for $14 here in Manila, just pick him up. It's very hard to find him, and he's a pretty good figure. If you're a big fan of the show, big fan of the lead guard, and especially Blurr and G1, you have to pick up this guy. If you're not a big fan of him, well, I think you should still pick him up just for the sake of the figure alone. I mean, the figure alone is just great, and the colors are so G1 accurate, except for this electric blue, but this neon blue. But other than that, it's pretty good. Okay, I'd like to finish this review in one part, but the transformation of this guy can be a little bit tricky, so I'd like to show it in a separate part. So I hope you guys don't mind. So stay tuned for part 2 of this review.